All right, we are at 11 o'clock, so let's go ahead and kick things off. Hello, Happy New Year. Welcome to January 2026. I can't believe we're here already. The year of the horse. This month also gives us a chance to celebrate and reflect on what other important causes like National Braille Month, Blood Donor Month, and Be Kind to Food Servers Month. I like that one. We're thrilled to have you here today for a conversation that truly matters, transitioning talent from doer to leader, practical support strategies for frontline supervisors. And as I think about this topic, I can't help but reflect on my own journey from being a doer to stepping into leadership. My first professional role was as a student event coordinator at Minnesota State University Mankato. So hello to all my Mankato peeps. And after graduation, I transitioned overnight into a full-time event coordinator role, suddenly managing a team that included people older than my parents and even grandparents at the time. And although I was extremely fortunate to have an incredible leader, Mr. Scott Hageback, I quickly realized that my 21-year-old self could have very much benefited from training and guidance to make that shift with confidence. That experience shaped my understanding of how critical it is to support new leaders as they navigate this transition. My name is Jessica Miller, and I'm the Director of Workforce Strategy for the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development, and we are so happy to have you here with us today. If you are new here, thank you so much for joining us, and if you're returning, thank you for returning and coming back to us. To kick things off, if you haven't done so already, please let us know who you are, your role, where you work, and if you're so inclined, tell us about your first leadership experience, whether it's personal or positional. Our team of consultants work regionally, and that means that each consultant will have a slightly different way that they do their work based on the region they're supporting and the employers that they're serving in those regions. But the common core ways that we serve employers are identified here. We work with you to identify gaps in your current strategies, ensure that you are connected with your local, regional, and state workforce partners, and we assist you in building out strategies that will help you attract and retain workforce. As you will learn today, our consultation process is rooted and informed by data and is developed specifically with your company's needs and goals in mind. We serve as your guide through that process and convene workforce partners for support. We share training grant opportunities and continually check in to ensure that progress is being made while also assisting in making adjustments along the way. When you work with us, you are automatically connected to a wide network of people and partners who work collaboratively for the success of our state, our regions, our communities, so that your business and our workforce can thrive. We do not do this work alone, and it takes many people to bring success to these efforts. And a lot of you are on this call today, so thank you for your support. Here it is. I think on this next slide coming up, it is our lineup for 2026, ready for registration. You can register for all 12 of the months in one time. So you spoke, we listened, and we incorporated your feedback into these topics, and we'll continue to weave your needs into our sessions for the rest of the year. If a hot topic comes up or something new is on your mind, we're always happy to add a session. So please keep speaking up and let us know what you'd like more clarity on, what information you're looking for, or any topic that you are curious to explore further. I would also like to take a moment to encourage you to fill out the evaluation at the end of our time here together. We will get that link popped into the chat for you. Your input is so important to us, and we really do care about what you find valuable in these sessions or what you would like to see different. As always, these webinars are recorded and available to view at any time via YouTube, as well as our careerforcemn.com website, where.gov. Sorry, we made that change, where you'll also find recordings and resources from this session, as well as all of our previous sessions. We will also be utilizing our chat feature today, as well as the Q&A feature located at the top menu bar throughout our time. So please ask questions, answer questions, and interact with our guests, the consultants, partners, and each other. We really do want to continue to build on this community that we've started, and we always welcome your engagement. We have a packed agenda today with speakers who have dedicated their careers to being change makers and culture shakers, and I am really, really excited for you to meet them. So without further ado, it's my privilege to introduce you to the amazing Becky Zobek, our Southwest and South Central Workforce Strategy Consultant. Take it away, Beck.
All right. Thank you, Jessica. Good morning, everyone. I'm Becky Zobek, your Workforce Strategy Consultant for South Central and Southeast Minnesota. So today we're talking about something every employer recognizes, which is promoting great doers is easy. Setting them up to succeed as supervisors is the hard part. So frontline leadership is really where retention, culture, and performance are won or lost. So our goal today is simple. Practical strategies you can use right away and things that work in real workplaces, not theory. So as we go, you can share comments in the chat and please put them in the Q&A so we can track them and prioritize them during the session. And let's look at where we're headed today with the agenda here. So first, we're going to anchor the purpose and outcomes for this session, what you should be able to take back and use. Then we'll cover why frontline leadership really matters, and we'll name the common challenges new supervisors face. From there, we'll move into the panel insights, which is the real world strategies that work from both an employer and education perspective. After the panel, we'll pull out a few communication and leadership essentials that consistently make the biggest difference. And then we'll wrap up with 3 things you can actually do this month, plus key takeaways and resources. And then at noon, we'll shift into our unplugged discussion. So please don't drop off. Stay on if you can make it the hour and a half, because that's really your time to bring questions or real world situations that you want to talk through. We've got these great panelists with all this great information. So why not tap into that if you can? Grab your lunch and eat it on the side. So go ahead and advance. Perfect. Thanks, Shayla. This shift from doing the work to leading the work is the biggest challenge new supervisors faced. So most people are promoted for technical skill, not necessarily leadership readiness. And this transition requires that mindset shift. So delegating, coaching, giving feedback, none of that feels natural at first, as Jessica was alluding to her experience. And the data really tells us the truth, which is 60% of the first-time leaders receive no formal training. Think about that. 60% of first-time leaders. So then you add them conflict, morale issues, performance problems, and relationships with former peers. That's pretty tough. Supervisors are really the heartbeat of engagement and retention. So when a supervisor struggles, the entire team feels like it. So I want to hear from you in the chat. What is your biggest challenge you see with new supervisors? For example, it could be delegation, maybe difficult conversations, perhaps managing the former peers or time management. What do you all think about that? Next slide. So let's connect this to business outcomes. Engaged supervisors really drive productivity, safety, and morale. And a Gallup poll shows us engaged teams deliver 21% higher profitability. SHRM points to career growth as the top driver of job satisfaction. And turnover is expensive, which we all know. Replacing a supervisor can cost 50 to 150% of the annual salary. So building strong frontline leaders really isn't an option. It's one of the strongest retention and performance strategies an employer can invest in. And when that support isn't there, these challenges show up first. Next slide. These 4 areas really show up everywhere, and it can really be in any industry. So first, developing a leader's mindset. that transition from peer to leader and learning to coach and delegate. Second is the managing former peers, which is balancing authority, trust, and past relationships. Third is that bridging skills gaps, which is strengthening communication, feedback, and conflict resolution skills. And finally, the lack of support systems. This is really shown in limited onboarding, mentoring, and clear expectations. So most employers recognize these immediately. But the good news is these problems are predictable and they're absolutely addressable with simple, structured support. Next slide. So let's get practical. So these are the employer strategies that I consistently see moving the needle, working with employers across the Southeast region, as I'm sure my colleagues across the other regions as well, is that first, a structured onboarding that focuses on leadership and not just paperwork. Second, that mentorship or buddy program. I know a lot of companies that have the buddy system, so new supervisors aren't figuring it out alone. Third, peer roundtables. What a great idea. A space to compare notes and solve real problems together. Fourth, you could do short, targeted, micro learning, even 15 to 30 minutes, like a supervisor 101 series. Fifth, you could do a toolkit, one-on-ones for feedback, goal setting, and then regular HR or leadership check-in for coaching and support. So these themes really are about consistency. Small, repeatable actions beat that one and done training. And the good news is these require intention more than that budget. So even if a company doesn't have the budget, you still have strategies that you can implement that are simple. And over time, they build confident supervisors. Next slide. So the leadership behaviors are foundational and they're basics that hold teams together. So it starts with clear expectations and then reinforcing them through consistent one-on-one focused on goals, feedback, and support. From there, trust is built through fairness, dependability, and transparency. People really can handle a lot if they believe the process is fair. And issues that come up, strong supervisors can address conflict early and professionally. And don't let it simmer. They also recognize positive and reinforcement in behavior, and they model the standards they expect because teams follow what the supervisor does, not what they say. And finally, they say calm under pressure. Emotional control is contagious. If a supervisor gets these right, they can hold a team together, even in tough environments. Next slide. So now for the fun part, that was just laying down the foundation here. So that's what we're going to be talking about. I'd like to transition us into our panel discussion. So we're joined today by three leaders who bring very different but very practical perspectives on developing frontline supervisors, higher education and customized training, manufacturing leadership development, and an internal training leader building supervisor programs inside an organization. So I'll introduce each of them and then we'll move into the conversation about what's working, what employers can realistically do, and what strong support for new supervisors actually looks like. So first, Julie Keeney, she serves as Winona State University's Business Outreach Coordinator and is committed to delivering high quality, customized training programs tailored to strengthen organizations throughout the region. Next, Kurt Baer is a business development consultant with Enterprise Minnesota, supporting manufacturers across southern Minnesota with practical guidance on leadership development, operational improvement, and growth. And finally, Jamie Innamorato is the training and development supervisor at Christensen Farms, right here in Sleepy Eye, where she leads leadership development, technical training, building scalable programs, and prepares supervisors to lead the people, manage performance, and support operational excellence. All right, so we can stop sharing the screen so that we can get more into a conversational format and jump into the panel flow. It looks like we've got everybody on the screen here. So thanks again, you all for being here. This is so exciting. I'm excited to hear more from you. So I think what I'll do is, even though I just introduced you, why don't we do a voice roll call so people can match names and say your name, role, and maybe just a sentence on who you actually support. So why don't we do Julie, and then we'll go to Kurt and Jamie.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. My name is Julie Keeney, and I serve as the Business Outreach Coordinator at Winona State University, working with business and industry across sectors, helping to customize and pinpoint training needs.
All right, my name's Kurt. I'm with Enterprise Minnesota. We serve the entire state. My region that I'm assigned is really southern Minnesota, from Laverne to La Crescent, all the counties across southern Minnesota. My experience is I've been involved in manufacturing for a real long time, and managing and developing leaders is an important thing.
Hi, good morning. I'm Jamie Inamorato. I'm the Training and Development Supervisor at Christensen Farms in Sleepy Eye, Minnesota. We are pork producers, and we have operations across 5 states within the Midwest. And my team and I, we lead the organization for training and development strategy for all departments across the organization, and all levels of leadership as well.
All right, thank you for that. So without further ado, let's dive in. So our first question, and we can maybe go that same order, Julie, Kurt, and Jamie. What are the biggest challenges you see for first-time or frontline supervisors?
Yes, thank you for that question. It is just something that is so evident in all of the business outreach activities that I engage in. It was interesting for me also to read the chat, all of your responses to that question at the front side of this meeting, because I would say that in the areas that I hear the most from up and coming supervisors, the topic and theme of communication, I would say of your chat responses, closer, at least 80 to 90%, all could point to communication. And I do really hear from organizations as far as employees that they are working with, and the issues of the lack of clear communication, that the skills of active listening are something that can be really enhanced, as well as professional etiquette. I think all of those things kind of wrap together, and the teams that do have strong communication and collaboration skills really see amazing outcomes as far as productivity increases, across the board. So there's a lot of data that supports that. But I was reading also how you mentioned crucial conversations, the ability to have that trust and accountability, and to address and give feedback that is productive and respectful and means change, right? So those areas really ring true for me. I would say, likewise, the area of critical thinking. I hear from leaders and supervisors, manager, mid-level, that there's this over-reliance on employees needing step-by-step instructions, and that their own individual problem solving is lacking. That they're really wanting employees who can analyze, who can adapt, and who can make decisions independently and really take that initiative to do so. So those would be some struggle areas that I hear about. The accountability and work ethic, those challenges of meeting deadlines, that also often comes up in conversations, that having the safety, psychological safety in the workplace, to own your mistakes and to assure that the follow through is in place. So I would start with those key themes of what I hear, because this whole dynamic of doer to leader, we have different programs that we call from buddy to boss, right? That scenario is ever present and is positive, right? To promote from within the organization is a very positive thing. But those supports do need to be in place when you're changing from being a peer to then supervising those that you were previously equal. So I would just open with that.
Rebecca, you're muted.
Okay, go ahead, Kurt. You're on board.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. That was, I think you just about covered everything there. My goodness. I guess I would say one of the mistakes, I'll just comment on two mistakes that I've seen. One is that the leadership doesn't acknowledge the need for leadership training. They might think that the person has, decent communication skills, they get along with their coworkers, and so they seem to be good enough and they don't need specific leadership training. The other thing that I see that is difficult to accomplish sometimes is for the new leader to realize that they are now responsible for the outcomes of their direct reports. And in the past, they've been an individual performer and they are proud of their work. They do it well. They go home safe every day. They have good behavior. They play well with others. But all of a sudden, when you're in a leadership role, you are responsible for the output of all those other people. And they need to understand that and buy into it, because the easy thing to do is to blame another person for the outcome. So.
Thank you. You have anything to add, Jamie?
Yeah. So, what we've seen here at Christensen Farms, definitely we are guilty in the past of, oh, you're really good at your job right now, so you're the best bet for, taking on this open management role. So that being said, these are individuals who are high technical performers. They're strong performers as an individual contributor. They've got that desire to do good work. But just as Curtis said, leadership is not addressing the fact that this is a completely different role than what they're currently in. In our case, you're not working with pigs anymore. You're working with people, and pigs and people are pretty different. We joke and say that, people are more difficult than the pigs are. But even, with individuals working with equipment, you're going from working with equipment to working with people. It is a completely different experience that requires a completely different skill set. And so not addressing that mindset shift, as Kurt mentioned, of I'm going from being in control of my own results to having to achieve the results I want through other people, that mindset shift is very difficult. And then that skill gap. These are people that want to do well. They're used to doing well, but we've pushed them into a situation that they're not qualified for. They don't have experience in it. And all of a sudden, we've got this really great talent that is struggling and they're not used to it. And that can be exceedingly stressful for those high performers because it's not part of who they've typically been. And so we've seen higher turnover in those situations because we're not setting them up for success. So if we would have appropriately handled this, strong talent from the very beginning, we could have had someone that really adds value to the company. But by approaching it in the wrong way and putting them in these positions that they're not prepared for and causing that discomfort, we're losing that really, that person that could have really added value, whether it is in the manager role or continuing in the role that they were on a different career path based on what truly is the best fit for their skill set. Just because you're good at working with pigs does not mean that you're going to be good at working with people. And sometimes that's a difficult conversation because people see, I want to be a manager because that is the only way to grow at the organization, when that is not the case, and being a manager is not the best fit for everyone. So it's about making sure that you're appropriately handling the talent and meeting them where they're at for their development and really putting them on a path that is right for their skills, for what they want in their future, and have a really good understanding of what the manager role is. Because it sounds nice, but if you really truly understand what a day in the life of a manager is, which is where I would recommend that job shadowing, spend some time with a manager to actually see what it is they're doing during the day. And after you see it and are exposed to it, do you still want to do that? We've had people that after doing the job shadow, they're like, oh, that's not what I thought it would be. I'm going to think about something else for my growth. And so, I would say that not having a true concept of what the position really is, leadership not addressing the mindset or the skill gap, and then setting individuals who are used to doing well into a situation where they're not capable of it.
Great. That is a great opener. A lot of information brought forward. I love the pigs and people. Side note, I grew up on a hog farm. It's funny. But I think we'll just dive right in then. Jamie, we'll just continue on you. Christensen Farms is now entering its 5th leadership cohort. So what originally pushed the company to build this internal program, and how maybe has it evolved over time?
Yeah, so I think as an organization, we went from being very reactive in situations where, we would lose a manager and then it would be panic mode. Oh my gosh, who can fill this role? And just that very reactive approach. And there were times when honestly we couldn't find anybody to fill a role. And so that farm would go without a farm manager for months at a time while we were trying to identify someone that we could fill that role with. And I mean, having no leadership on a team for an extended period of time is never a good idea. I think we can all agree on that. So that was a challenge. And then that reactive approach to, well, you're good at your job, so let's put you there and we'll give you the training once you start. But I mean, providing the training after the fact, I mean, I guess it's better than nothing, but these individuals didn't have a clear idea of what it meant to manage as opposed to, being an expert in their technical field. And so that was a struggle. Trying to shift their mindset was a struggle. And then trying to learn, not just the leadership side of things, but you're learning a new job. So what are the daily functions that I have to do? They're learning all of that new. And then on top of it, we were trying to squeeze in leadership development, and it was exceedingly stressful for them. And so we saw high turnover with those individuals. And, we were getting feedback from them saying, I didn't feel prepared for this whatsoever. I don't know what to do here. I don't know what to do here. What should I do here? Getting a lot of employee relations issues with those particular individuals. And so we had turnover, and we also had individuals that were just saying, no, I want a demotion. And that's never good when you get someone that, is requesting, give me a demotion. So that's where we were at. We started taking more of a proactive approach where we're doing early talent identification. So we're not waiting to the last minute to decide to develop people if we're noticing that they're showing talent and desire to, continue to grow and advance in the company. And so we're identifying that talent, but also we're being very careful about how we assess the talent to determine good fit. And so it's not just, oh, I think he's good, going on hunches. So we've got very formalized evaluation tools that we use based on what the organization has deemed as critical characteristics and competencies for that frontline leadership role. And so we have the managers of this identified talent complete these tools. And I'll tell you that we've gotten a lot of feedback from those individuals saying like, oh my gosh, this has me thinking about talent completely differently. Like this person I'm seeing by using these tools that they're a really high performer in their role, but as far as the characteristics and competencies that we're laying out here, I don't think they match. And so it's helped us kind of identify better, maybe this isn't the best person to put into potentially developing to become a manager. Maybe we can develop them in another way. So that's been very helpful. And then those that we have identified is, possessing those characteristics that are a good fit for frontline management. We have developed an internal program to focus on a lot of the things that Rebecca and Julie have brought up about communication, time management, delegation. Our kickoff course is all about the mindset shift. I'm actually teaching one on Friday called The Role of the Manager, where we just give them a really good insider view on what the role is, what you're going to be doing, what your focus is, and how we're going to work on shifting their mindset. We work on, having those difficult conversations, conflict competency, and so on. And they, in live operations, we actually completely pull them out of their role and they're 100% dedicated to their training and development. We call that the accelerated pathway. And then for the rest of the organization, that training takes place over the course of a year, and they stay in their role, and that's in addition to their daily functions. There's a lot of practical application during the program, and we run 2 of those live operations cohorts a year, and we run yearly for the rest of the departments. And we don't do it based on how many openings do we have. We're constantly always doing it whether we have openings or not. And today, all of our farm manager roles are filled. We had one farm manager position open a couple of weeks ago, and we had so many qualified candidates for it that it was difficult to decide. Mm-hmm. And we have a bench of 5 very qualified internal candidates waiting for an opportunity to open. So it has taken time. This is our 5th cohort, so we're on 2.5 years of this. But it was definitely worth the investment to have this peace of mind to ensure smooth transitions of leadership and be able to be proactive when it comes to talent.
Yeah. That's a lot of great information. From the assessment, there's just so many things that you have implemented that are great. So hopefully people were able to take a few nuggets from that. Continuing on, I want to ask this question of Kurt. So you're inside a lot of those manufacturing companies across southern Minnesota, you said. So what patterns are you seeing around first-time supervisors? If you're seeing any patterns.
Yeah, thanks for the question. What I feel like is that the good work that Christensen Farms is doing, I think some of that might be because of their size and their number of employees. The customers that I tend to connect with are small, usually less than 50 employees, maybe even 10 or 15 or 20. And so they don't have the resources to dedicate internally to do the training. Fortunately, that is what Enterprise Minnesota does, is we provide that training. And so I think probably one of the big mistakes that I see is that people don't embrace the training element quickly enough, and they feel like they can self-perform it somehow on their own, and they really end up not doing anything. And they realize that they should have done something when there's a problem, usually a safety problem or a quality problem. And the outcome from that is that the employees weren't properly trained, there wasn't proper leadership, and that's the reason the non-conforming product left the building, or the employee had an unsafe act and there was an injury. You know, it's hard to get those supervisors and even the business owners sometimes to realize that they are responsible for all the outcomes at their shop and their direct reports. And they have to be proactive about this, because one of my own sayings is, I know what'll happen if I do nothing, right? And so we have to do something. And the other thing I feel like that I see is that every manager feels like their job would be easier if all their direct reports were more well-behaved, right? If everybody would just do what they need to do, and my job would be so much easier. And that's just not reality. You have to reach out to these people and help them understand how to be a better leader. So that's what I'm seeing.
Thanks, Kurt. And I like your reference to, Christensen Farms. You have your own staff, learning and development, and, the smaller companies might not be able to do that, but there are little steps you can take and implement that help. So
I have one more thing to add that I see sometimes is the F word, family, right? There'll be family involved in the business, and you'll have, whatever, siblings, cousins, uncles, aunts, all that involved in the business. And that, well, it doesn't make things easier. Mm-hmm. And so that's a real thing.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Julie, let's go and put the education hat on here through your lens. From your vantage point, working with many employers, what themes are you hearing about the new supervisors struggle most? I know some of that you had alluded to at the beginning. If there were any other thing that you'd talk on that matter?
Sure, I could cover some of that. And did you also want an example of one of the programs in this portion?
That would be great. I think that's always helpful.
Yes, I think that will an example will shed more light on both of those questions. So for the past 8 years, Winona State is working in partnership with a financial banking institution, and we've been a workforce training partner with them to deliver university verified credentials. Most importantly, they are recognizing all levels of their organization, not only their emerging leaders, but also their manager and supervisory roles. So the values and kind of beliefs that are behind this is that we need great leaders. Yes, that's what this is about. We need great leaders. We also need great followers. And quite often, when you think of being a follower, there can be a negative connotation. However, looking at programs where you identify strengths in your people, and Jamie talked about this, of using tools to really learn, identify what are the strengths of each of your individual team members, because your people are your company and your organization's greatest asset, right? Your people are what make everything tick. So using those tools, really make a difference. So Strengths Finder is one example that can help identify what those strengths are. And then employee talent and leadership growth really can fall into place. So a series like that of a commitment from your leadership, that they understand that leadership and management, both the leaders and the followers, those skills can be cultivated. They can be taught. They can be modeled. I hear some comments like, well, if they don't get it, they're never going to get it. And when they say it, they mean the soft skills, the collaboration skills, the ability to work on a team. And I disagree with that. I say it's possible over time, with the job shadowing, with the mentoring, with the coaching, that these skills can be brought forward, and the strengths of that individual can come to really match the responsibilities and role. So, all of these areas of within our program include coaching, emotional intelligence, mindfulness, the group dynamics, and all of the team building. So these type of programs can be used as recruitment tools. The employer can say, you know what, we invest in our people. We believe in our people. This is an ongoing program in order to support you. So it can be used to attract employees, and it really can be used to retain the very best of those that you hire. It's not easy. It takes time. It takes the commitment of leadership and the understanding that this isn't going to be a one and done, that it's a commitment over time if you're looking to move the dial in any areas of cultural change or transformation in the organization. So Jamie, I heard so many things that you are just rock star on to lead your people, and to have an internal training program like that. You are so fortunate. And the organizations I work with primarily don't have an internal training department. So we support organizations in that area. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Some good insights there. Jamie, let's just jump right into back to you then. So I know you, when we first connected, you were talking about a 10-week capstone period where those trainees can actually step into that supervisor role. So I was just kind of wondering if you could chat a little bit about that, and maybe the kinds of growth or challenges that you see during that phase might be helpful for people.
Yeah, sure. So this is, I think we kind of combined two separate things that we do in our program. So we've got a 10-week action plan project that we have them do, but then we also have a 4-week window in which we actually put them in charge of the team. It's kind of like a stress test, and it's right at the very end of their leadership program. So I'll talk first about the 10-week action plan project. So one thing that I think is a very, I mean, I've seen it, I'm guilty of it in the past, is seeing training as like an event. I went to a training and that's it. You're not going to get behavior change, especially when it comes to soft skills, from just attending a singular training event. So training approach is also really important if you want to see actual behavior change. So we have, I mean, it's really important to include a practical application activity with every single training that you do. Give them opportunities to practice what they've done on the job. And so that's really what we're doing with that 10-week action plan project. So, you know, after we've taught them all of the skills, the last 10 weeks of the program, we have them identify a business opportunity and create an action plan on how they're going to address it. So in talking about the problem solving and critical thinking that Curtis mentioned, this is really their opportunity to put into practice in a safe practice training environment what they've learned related to those two skills. And so they create a whole action plan using our company template, and they have to execute that action plan over the course of 10 weeks. And the cool thing about this is that they've actually really added value to the business. And so it's a training opportunity, it's an investment, but also they're doing projects that we haven't had anybody around to dedicate to those projects. So they're adding value for us. So it's been kind of a win-win situation. And we have all of our leadership attend their presentations at the end so that they can see the outcomes of the training that's been happening. So really that's a good way for you to measure the success of the program, is to see how they do with that actual, 10-week project. Also, the last 4 weeks for our accelerated program, we actually remove the farm manager from the site and have them support at a different farm or support somewhere else in the organization. And the trainee manages that farm for 4 weeks on their own. Obviously, we support them. There's hand holding. We don't just kind of say, oh, it's up to you. So we do provide them some support, but in that way, we're able to gather a lot of information about what went well for them, where were the gaps, and that allows us to create kind of really specific actionable feedback. So if they do get hired on as a manager after the fact, we can give a report to their manager to be like, they are still struggling in this area, continue to provide training and development in this. So, and I would say, honestly, we've seen our trainees do very well in general during that stress test. I would say the one thing that they struggle with the most would probably be the time management piece. The good thing about it is we have them hourly, so we're able to track how many extra hours they're putting in, but they catch themselves going out into the barn a lot, trying to do things themselves rather than delegating. And then they have to work extra hours to get their manager responsibilities taken care of. So I would say that is one of the biggest things we see. And we've got a lot of situations where, they're struggling kind of with those difficult conversations. Not that they don't have the frameworks, they just haven't had tons of experience doing it. And so it's a good opportunity for them to have additional support in those first, more challenging conversations that they need to have with staff.
I love that. I love having them step into that role, but being there to support, I think it's nurturing, and it speaks to you don't have any farm manager positions open. It's like competitive because people want to get in that role and have that experience. So I love that. Let's see, what time are we at? I can't believe we're getting close to finishing up this panel piece, but maybe let's do a lightning round. So, and maybe we'll just do Kurt, Julie, and then Jamie. Maybe if an employer on this call wants to do one thing, maybe in Q1, to better support their frontline supervisors, what would you recommend? One thing. We
I
can
would
think on
recommend,
it.
yeah. I would recommend that they look at the things that are, not best practice in their business, sources of frustration, things, safety incidents, quality incidents that have occurred in the last, recent past, right? And think about how leadership and better leadership can fix those things for the future. And then do something about it. Like, don't do nothing, do something, right?
Action. Yeah. Julie, would you have any recommendations for people on the call for Q1, what they could do?
Yeah, I would say, all that I've heard today also agrees with, we survey our business clients annually, and we get, feedback to be responsive with our program as well. And of our last survey, 85% of our organizations identified the skill gaps in soft skills and communication. So again, this theme, we keep drumming on this theme, but I would say one thing, in kind of a short term, to begin, and then to look at the long-term plan of how training fits into your overall strategy of meeting your business goals. That effective communication and feedback skills. Those really are the foundation of so much of the team performance and engagement that we've been talking about. So that would be my recommendation.
All right, Jamie.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think what would come first. I would say, we are lucky at Christensen Farms in that we have a very large, we've got a dedicated training team in-house. However, we wouldn't be able to do everything that we're doing right now without collaboration with our partners. So we were awarded a MJSP grant through the state of Minnesota through DEED. We're on our second grant, and we use those grant dollars to collaborate with local community colleges. So we collaborated with Mankato State University on the first one, and on this one, we're collaborating with South Central in Mankato. And we are able to design and develop training programs that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. We're able to leverage subject matter experts that we wouldn't have access to otherwise. And so my recommendation would be to look up information about the MJSP grant through the Minnesota DEED website, and see when the next application window is and apply for one. If you don't have that subject matter expertise like Christensen Farms does, like if you don't have a training and development team, you can get access to somebody that can help you with this, you know, and leverage someone like Julie. Does Winona participate in those collaborations?
We do. Yes, we do help facilitate MJSP grants.
Yep. So we've had a wonderful experience with that. And so I would say look into it there. You can't use the excuse for money or expertise if you've been awarded an MJSP grant.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you for saying that, Jamie, because as our role as a workforce strategy consultant, that's part of our role is connecting businesses to the MJSP program. So please reach out to me if I'm in your region or one of the workforce strategy consultants on the call. You know, we can help guide you on those next steps. And we have you know, relationships with the education partners as well. So that's what I would say on that. So now we're wrapping up the panel. Thank you, Shayla, for bringing up the presentation. Thank you, panelists. That was amazing. And I'm looking forward to continuing our discussion in the Unplugged. So really, 3 things you can do this month. So if you take nothing else from today, take these 3 things. They're small, realistic, and they work. First, clarify expectations. Have that 30-minute conversation with each frontline supervisor about the top 3 priorities and what success looks like in Q1. Most frustration starts with unclear priorities. Second, add 1 simple support. Pick 1 low lift support to pilot, such as a buddy or a mentor, maybe a monthly supervisor huddle, or a basic one-on-one template. Support doesn't have to be complicated to be effective. And then third, plan 1 skill boost. Choose 1 skill, often feedback or difficult conversations, and line up a short training, resources, or practice session before the end of the quarter. So those are 3 things you can do this first quarter. And the key takeaways of today, big key takeaways. We heard a lot across the board, but frontline leadership success starts before the promotion. It really does. That small, consistent development beats that one and done training. And having clear expectations and supportive coaching makes the doer to leader shift manageable. And simple structures such as the one-on-ones, mentors, basic tools, and reduce the burnout and the turnover. So a lot of great information. I'm excited to continue the conversation, and hopefully you'll be able to address the questions, burning questions that you have. So in a moment, we'll shift into Unplugged. And all right, I think that's it for me. So I am going to hand it over to my colleague, Adeshewa, who is in the metro area, to kick off the Unplugged, but talk quick about her session coming up in February. So Adeshewa, over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Becky. Before I start, just saying that this was a great conversation. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Curtis. Thank you, Julie, for just your input and your thoughts on this topic. Definitely an important topic. And so, as Becky mentioned, my name is Adeshewa Adesiji. I am the Workforce Strategy Consultant in the metro area, and I am very excited about facilitating our February webinar. So registration is now open for that webinar, which will be on Wednesday, February 4th. The title is Check Your Filters, How Biases Shape Hiring, Feedback, and Leadership. So in this webinar, we're going to explore how unconscious biases, or what we will call maybe our internal filters, can influence critical workplace decisions. Topics that will cover during that webinar includes biases in hiring, feedback, performance, leadership development, and the possibility of biases in AI, which I think a lot of people really have not considered. So all attendees will be encouraged to check their filters by increasing their awareness of how biases show up in everyday interactions and decision making. And the goal of the webinar is to offer some practical strategies to help individuals or businesses take steps towards building a more equitable and inclusive workplace at every level. So I'm definitely excited about that. Once again, registration is now open. You can also go to careerforcemn.gov to check out past and upcoming sessions, resources, blogs, and ways to engage with your local workforce strategy consultants. And you can also sign up to receive our emails for reminders about these events, our newsletters, or other information that we send out. Also, too, I would recommend is to connect with us through LinkedIn. We all have LinkedIn profiles where we share a lot of information, including up and coming Workforce Wednesday webinars. So definitely reach out to us and connect with us. There's multiple ways to do that. So with that, I will ask that if people stay, because we're going to just go straight over to the Unplugged, where I'll be facilitating that, asking the panelists some questions. This is an opportunity for you in the audience to unmute your mic and to ask questions as well. So with that, I think that we are ready. So the first thing I want to do before I get into questions, because we do have some questions, is to see if there's anyone in the audience who would like to unmute their mic and ask either one of the panelists or one of the workforce strategy consultants any questions.
We have to transition yet. It'll take us 2 seconds.
Oh, okay. Hey, I'm new at this, so.
Looks like Jackie has a question,
Yes, Jackie.
but I think Becky has to swap her.
Okay.
While we're waiting, there is a question from Amanda in the audience I could ask. This is directed towards Jamie. Jamie, could you give us an example of a project that was completed as part of your leadership training experience?
Yeah, we just had some project presentations in November, and I mean, we had quite a few good ones actually from this group. We had an individual, so we have a lot of standard operating procedures. You know, we're in a production environment, and especially when it comes to our animal care, we have very, specific guidelines on how we take care of our animals. And one of our participants identified that we had some documentation lacking for an important procedure in our nursery grow finish environment. And so she went through and, the entire process of, developing an SOP, used our templates, got all of our images, and then went through the approval process that we have internally at the organization to get that approved. And actually, that is part of our SOP manual now. So it did get approved. So that was one. We, when we do have a health crisis on one of our farms, that can be very emotionally draining for our staff. It's, it's their pride and joy in these animals. They love the animals. So if we've got a health crisis and they're sick, that's very draining. And so we had an employee create a crisis response manual that gives tips to managers on how they can support their employees if there is a health crisis on farm. And that's actually being reviewed right now by senior leadership to see how we can get this implemented at all farms.
That's amazing. That's an amazing idea.
Yeah.
Thank you, James. There is Jackie Stewart, I believe, that has her hand up.
Yes, thank you. Jamie, I actually have a similar question about the projects. Thank you for the examples that you gave, but I'm wondering, have you also had people who created an action plan around like issues with an employee, like performance issues and how they would address that or not? Because technically they're not in the manager position yet. But I'm just curious if there's also anything related to, you know, managing people where they create an action plan on how they would address it, or is it just, you know, like a business opportunity project, something that's, yeah.
Got it. So I will say that that kind of naturally comes up as part of the projects because the way that we set up our new manager, our like frontline manager level training program is that we focus on the 4 functions of management. So if you take a management course, like intro to management course anywhere, you know, any university or anything like that, they're going to focus. That's going to be the first thing they look at is the 4 functions. That's planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. And so we focus on building skills in those 4 areas, and that leading function and also the controlling function, that's where you're going to see a lot of your soft skills. In the controlling function, that's about seeing, okay, we made the action plan, we got all of our resources together and it communicated everything in planning and organizing. But as we're executing the action plan, how do we make sure that we're sticking to it? And performance management comes up in there. So when they go and present their final project, they need to go through and show, this is what I did in the planning phase. This is what I did in the organizing phase. This is the way that I engaged my team members to participate in the action plan. And so they'll talk about the different strategies that we learned throughout training and how they leverage those strategies to you know, work with the team. And then in controlling, they're going to talk about, you know, these are the performance issues that came up when I was, you know, carrying out the action plan. This is how I addressed those performance issues. And so if they did have an experience during that time where they had to provide feedback and address a performance issue with an employee, they would, you know, share that as part of their final project outcome. So yes, the final project is tangible and it can be related to business outcomes, but they can't get the business outcomes for their project if they're not collaborating with their team. And so that's when all of kind of what you were mentioning comes into play. And we do support them during the program. So if there's a situation and they need help coaching an employee or delivering feedback, I prefer to be present and sit in the room just in case and have them lead the conversation. But yeah, that's an expectation that it would be a part of the project.
Could I comment on that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so part of the program that we have at Enterprise Minnesota is also includes a practical application of the skills that they're learning. So each participant has a project that they manage during their training, and that could be any number of things related to leading others. And then at the end of the training, we do a debrief with the sponsoring manager, and the person who was trained reports out, you know, what their project was, what were the outcomes, what did they accomplish, how do they feel about it, you know, all that kind of thing. So there's, I think, you know, consistent with what Jamie is saying, is there needs to be this practical exercise to make something better than it used to be, right? Yeah.
I could give one kind of just wrap up example from my example with the financial banking institution and the work we did with them. Yes, the 9-month program to have a culmination of that learning. And what is so key here and what everyone's talking about, Jamie and Kurt, both their examples, it's all application in the work environment. And that's what's so key in translating learning and growth into application into the real world environment. So the example with the financial institution, a couple examples of those projects would be like there was a team that was directly talking about customer service. And they've seen common scenarios as there can be high stakes and high stress in a banking situation where you have customers who maybe are denied a loan or such, whatever. And so they had actual scenarios and practice of responses to even develop a toolkit and a script. How do we respond? How do we support our customers in these scenarios? So that was one example. A second was about accessibility for those with diverse needs, physical needs and or social emotional needs. So just the language, developing a kind of handbook of common language. How do we respond? What is our brand of our organization and the way we respond and support the diverse audience of customers? So those are just examples of projects that really brought the training to life.
Thank you, thank you. So Jamie, I'm gonna stick with you. And I actually am going to stick with Jackie too. Jackie had asked a question in the comment talking about how often should individuals attend leadership trainings. You know, and you mentioned it's not a one and done. And I believe that Becky also said, you know, one of the takeaways that it's not a one and done. It's a continuous process, continuous development. What would be your your recommendations, or what are your thoughts on how long should leadership training go before, you know, if you feel someone is not a good fit, how long should that take before that decision is made to, okay, maybe this is not the right path within the company for you, let's try something else?
Jamie, did you want to kick off? Yes.
You know, I don't think there's a cookie cutter response to that. I think it's really going to depend on the individual for, you know, it's so, yeah, it's so dependent on the individual. I think understanding what they're starting with and how proficient they are in the skills that you're going to be training is going to dictate how much training and how little training they need. And then as far as how to know if it's not going to be a good fit, I would say, you know, it makes it, I have to say it makes it easier to make that determination if you start on the right foot. So if I've already done like the analysis that I need to do to see, do they have the skills I'm looking for? Do they have the competencies I'm looking for? Do they have those innate characteristics that are important according to our company values? If I know that those things are there, I might push a little longer. If I haven't done that work, then I don't really have any good evidence to suggest that, you know, I'm going to push harder because I know those things are there. So make sure that you're getting off on the right foot. And if you haven't done those things, I mean, it's not too late. You can always, you know, reach out to an external partner, like a university or a community college or Minnesota Deed, see if you can get some support and figure out what is the best way to assess my talent. And that can help give you a little bit more objective information in making that decision. I think talent development and assessment can get really hard for organizations who don't have access to some of these tools because it can seem really fluffy. Like, I think this person is good at this, and I think this is the right decision. It can seem more of an like it's just an art. And there are so many resources available that can help add science to it, objectivity and science. And so that's going to help you be able to make some of these decisions with data to leverage.
Right on. Absolutely. I love all of that. And I would just add that with the use of the correct resources and tools, that individual also in their process of self-discovery of their strengths and where they fit within the bigger picture of the organization will hopefully, through that background that Jamie was talking about, come to their own understanding that, yes, this is a fit for me, or no, I really can excel with my talents in the area that's different from this role, so that they then self-discover.
I would add that a good tactic there could be to take responsibility yourself. And as the manager say, this is an unfortunate outcome. It happened for these reasons, but I'm responsible because I didn't thoroughly equip you to handle this situation. When this happens again, consider these things, or get me involved, or get a colleague involved. But I think it helps people to understand that they're not like exclusively under the bus all by themselves dealing with the problem. And if you make them realize that they're part of a team, they're more apt to give it another try.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. So, Jamie, I'm going to leave you alone for a little bit. I've been asking you a lot of questions. Curtis, and I do want to apologize. I think I said Kurt before, but it's Curtis, so I apologize for that.
That's fine.
One of the questions that Rebecca or Becky had asked you was about like your experience with Enterprise Minnesota and working with a lot of manufacturers from small to large. What patterns are you seeing around first line supervisors? And one of the things that you had mentioned was when it's a family owned business, it doesn't make it easier. And one of the questions from the audience, from a Denise, and I apologize if she's still in the on the webinar, we don't have your last name. She did ask, what about family owned companies? What if there is any, are challenges and success? So can you kind of elaborate on when it comes to family owned businesses, when it comes to getting family members in leadership positions, what are some of the challenges? And if you've seen any success, what are some examples of successes? And then for Jamie and Julie, if you want to, if you have some input and want to elaborate as well, you can do that too. It'd be great.
Yeah, thank you. I think the family thing isn't just around ownership, because you can have a community, and I'll just pick Sleepy Eye, where there's a lot of people that are in the area and they're naturally family, right? They may not be owners of the business, but they're family. So, and in a good way, we kind of like it if employee is content working for us and they're willing to recommend a family member. That's a good sign. With regard to family ownership and succession planning and those kind of things, I think that we have a lot of older owners that I would think of as the parents in this situation, who wish that their children were more equipped. And I think that too often they can give them responsibilities that they're not really ready for, right? The parents have their own timetable and their own agenda, and they want to become snowbirds. They have a horizon, and they wish that their children were older and more equipped, and so they wrestle with that. I've seen, where siblings work together, and I think there's also can be, it's not always true, but there can be a feeling of entitlement, and so working alongside one of the family members, they might get more second chances or more grace around being late. And so it's really, really important that those family members realize that they have to give 110% because everyone is watching them. And they need to be treated equally, because it affects the credibility of the leader or manager if they treat those family members with a different standard of performance. And it can be, it's a challenge always. Sometimes it's managed better than other times. So does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Julie or
and I-
Jamie? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
well,
go
I was
ahead.
going to say, I have a colleague at Enterprise Minnesota who was part of a family business. And one day his dad said, I don't think you have the fire in your belly for this business. You will not be a successor. Today's your last day. And it's worked out just fine. But those are the difficult conversations that, you have to have. And sometimes it takes a lot of management courage to go there. Yeah.
Thank you. Julie or Jamie, anything else you'd want to add to this? Or did Curtis pretty much, yeah, you covered it, okay.
I think Curtis covered it.
Okay. Well, Julie, let me ask you a question now. So, many of the employers on this call are stretched thin and don't have like a full-blown training team. They don't have that bandwidth. What are some low-lift, low-cost ways that they can start supporting new supervisors, as soon as possible that you recommend?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And as we were talking, there are external training support services across many higher ed institutions, 2-year or 4-year, as well as independent contractors out there in the world, and Enterprise Minnesota at state level, all different levels of support. But I would say for some kind of low lift or lower cost, to partner with an organization, and it could be grant funded, as Jamie had talked about, but looking at some kind of micro learning resources. There can be in-person or virtual, resources that would be everything from programs that can support concepts with podcasts, with videos, with articles. All of those things could be curated by a subject matter expert to help you in kind of the short, get a taste of what this topic could be. There could be peer learning circles that are internal within your organization. I also have helped to organize that type of thing, not only for reinforcing a concept from a training, but to increase morale and communication across departments. Other areas we've talked about toolkits. Those are some other areas to really determine. The key is, what are your goals? What are your goals in the short term that then hopefully translate to a longer term? Because in the short term, we can raise awareness. We can do any of these, formats of introducing and supporting employees. Level 1 is raising that awareness. If you look over time, the learning, the practice, the actual assimilation into the organization for any type of behavioral change needs to be longer term. So for the short term, identifying an area that aligns with your strategy and goals for your organization. Our organization, as well as many we've mentioned here, are available to help really in the assessment of where to start. So that's where I would land with that.
So piggybacking off of that, so let's say I am one of those employers in the audience, and I don't have that bandwidth, and you just listed a lot of good, different places to start. What would be, if I came to you and said, okay, I can't do all, what is the one thing I should start with? What would that be?
I would say pulling together if you're multi-tiered, leaders of departments, pulling your champions together, those who would be supported by your leadership, to have a really frank conversation on where you're at, what's going well, where do we want to move the organization, and what are the gaps? I mean, so some of that initial needs assessment, could really be a huge valuable exercise in determining direction. But again, it needs to involve those who are the influential champions and those who are the leaders of the organization.
Yes.
My one thing would be to go to the website, enterpriseminnesota.org, and give us a call. And we will show
Nice.
up and we will do a discovery call and try and figure out what are your pain points around leadership, and we'll offer you a solution. And then you can do whatever you want. But that's my one thing.
Nice. I like the plug for Enterprise Minnesota. Nice.
I am the salesperson, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's true. It's true. I can say, speaking, from company perspective, like we consult a lot. And so we've leveraged community colleges, universities. There's an organization up in the cities called Frederickson Learning that we've worked with quite a few times. They provide consultants that can come and assist. They provide custom education as well. So, I mean, there's so many resources available to you to help support your organization when it comes to training and development. If that's not your area of expertise, this can all feel really overwhelming. Like, where do you start? What's the starting point? Julie's absolutely correct in that you need to approach it the same way that you would approach any other initiative at your organization, strategically. It can be a science. It doesn't have to just be an art, and Band-Aid solutions are not going to be effective. This does, just like any other business initiative, it takes that strategy. So come up with your strategy, reach out to whoever you need to support you in that, and go from there. I will say there are a couple resources that I'd like to call out that have been useful. The Association for Talent Development, ATD, it is useful. It has a lot of different resources, webinars, templates, toolkits for managers, as Julie brought up. It is a membership that you have to pay for, but by paying for that membership, you get access to a lot of information that can really help support that talent development in your organization. There's also opportunities for you to sign up for different certifications. So if you want to learn how to be a good trainer and keep your training internal, there's a Train the Trainer certification that you can take to make sure that the training that you're implementing, especially if you've got, a smaller organization, if you're the trainer, if you have one designated trainer, putting them through something like this so you can ensure that hands-on training that's happening on site is effective. I mean, there's information on there about how you can leverage characteristics and competencies and behavioral styles to build out development plans. There's actually a webinar already scheduled. I don't know if it's an on-demand one or if it's scheduled, that talks about the importance of development planning in 2026. So that could be a useful thing to attend as well. So ATD, there's actually a Twin Cities branch of ATD here in Minnesota, and they have lots of in-person events as well. And they can help connect you to resources. So all things training and development, they know it all. They have a lot of connections. So ATD Twin Cities would be good. The other thing that's available is if your company is interested in having like premium access to LinkedIn Learning or LinkedIn, so that you can have access to LinkedIn Learning. That's on-demand training. And there are so many training courses in LinkedIn Learning, like there's just so many. There's so many. And they even have like learning pathways. So if you want to learn project management or something, they've got a whole entire pathway built out that comes with a certification at the end of it. And LinkedIn Learning's gotten really good at making sure that they have opportunities for practical application as well. So they have AI role play now, where if you have to have a difficult or challenging conversation or interaction, you can just type in what the scenario is. And then with a headset, you can actually talk back and forth with an AI person, and they'll analyze the conversation and provide feedback to you and additional recommendations on LinkedIn Learning courses. So that's a tool that you can use. Yeah. So really don't feel like you have to do it all on your own. There are so many opportunities to leverage external resources to support you in that, but start with a strategic approach.
Oh my God, that was just awesome. A plethora of resources. Thank you so much. Before we get into the last questions for the panelists, I just wanted to mention one thing. One of the questions, and it was directed at Jamie, but you've already answered it, so I'm not going to ask the question. It was about the impact of the Minnesota Job Skills Partnership grant. You had mentioned being able to partner with Mankato, South Central through the grant. Leveraging subject matter experts. And so for those that are still in the audience, now I'm going to do a shameless plug. I do definitely recommend if you are looking at getting some type of grant or funding to support that leadership development efforts, one, definitely reach out to the workforce strategy consultant in your area. And two, you can always research the Minnesota Job Skills Partnership grants to learn more about that. They have a team that is wonderful and will be able to answer any questions you have about application to, how you can utilize the grant if you apply and received a grant from that program. So that's just a shameless plug for the Minnesota Job Skills Partnership grant. So we have 5 minutes left. So I have 2 questions. Hopefully we can get through both of them. If not, that's okay. But we're going to do a round robin, and I want to start with Curtis. Looking ahead a few years, what skills do you think will matter even more for frontline supervisors than they do today? And then everyone can answer it, but we'll start with Curtis.
Yeah, thank you. I think that I feel like you're kind of in a good way baiting me into saying something about artificial intelligence or technology and all that stuff. And while that might be true, I think the things that we need are more problem solving, communication, demonstrating integrity and ethical behavior, and being willing to adapt to change in the workplace. Those are mine.
All right.
So Curtis took my top one, but I will just expand on it. Way to go, Curtis. Adaptability. I think in this day and age, with not only the rapid fire changes of all the technology, it's also the generations in the workplace like we've never seen before. You might have 3 generations in the same department, right? So, an organization. So all of those things, for those who we find who are resistant to that change, resistant to change in process, there are indeed challenges. So we are valuing flexibility. And part of that is what the key theme here today is: continuous learning, lifelong learning. And it's just a way to then continue to meet your employees where they're at and support team growth. So that would be my exclamation mark on that.
I will be third to support that. Ability to manage change is huge, particularly in our ag industry, who is really going through some whiplash right now when it comes to innovation. And then for frontline managers, I think talent identification and development is going to be really huge. With this new generation, they're very interested in career development, and the way that we approach this new generation is very different from what we have in the past. So when it comes to engagement and retention and wanting to succession plan, we really got to focus on that talent identification and development.
So we have 2 minutes left, but I want to ask this question. I think we can do it. This one is going to be our last question. We're going to start with Julie, but I'd like for everyone to answer. If you can give every new supervisor one short phrase to keep on a sticky note at their desk, what would it say?
Ooh, I love this. Love this. I'm going to steal a Brene Brown. And her quote is, clarity is kindness, meaning clear communication, clear expectations, and purposeful feedback. That's a lot on a sticky note, but just put clarity is kindness. Thanks for the opportunity to join you today.
Yes. Clarity is kindness. I like that. Jamie, Curtis?
You know what? I would write accept responsibility. You know, you're the leader. You're responsible for the output of your team. Do not try and, point responsibility at someone else. Take the responsibility and move on with solving the problem.
I'm trying to decide between two. Okay,
Well, you can
so
have two
I would
post-it
say
notes.
Yeah.
I'm
There's two
going to say
sides.
two post-it
Yes.
notes.
I got one. Pigs are not people.
Yeah.
There's that. People are more complicated. So get curious about people before you get corrective. And then I would say lead people first, and your results will follow.
Okay, I'm so glad that we're recording this because now we can look back and say, okay, we're gonna take those notes, write those down, maybe put those on my computer. Oh my God. So Jamie, Curtis, Julie, thank you so much for your input. Thank you for being a part of this webinar. Thank you, Becky, for putting together an awesome webinar. Thank you to everyone for staying for the entire hour and 30 minutes to hear and participate in this robust discussion. Once again, if you have any questions, please reach out to your workforce strategy consultants in your area. And with that, everyone have a good rest of their week, rest of their month, and we will see you on February 4th. Take care.
Hi, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.